Hi, I'm Kelsey, and I am a mother of three. I just wanted to explain kind of my why of why I did my last pregnancy naturally and my labor and delivery completely unmedicated. So my first two pregnancies were medicated. I knew very little. I was young, so I basically just did what the doctor said, thinking, yeah, they have my best interest at heart. And had an epidural with both. Thankfully, with both, I did not have to be induced. Both times, well, the first time my water broke in the night, which ended up, not being super great because when your water breaks, the baby falls and gets into a bad position, and she had a whole positioning problem, throughout my whole labor and delivery. She was pushing on her cord, and every time I'd have a contraction, it would push on it even more, and then her heart rate would drop. And then my second, it all worked out well, though. I had her vaginally, then it was okay. Second pregnancy, again, I got to go into labor naturally. My water did not break at home, but I was like 38 weeks and like 5 days, and I had just put my daughter to bed, and like I was saying, I put my daughter to bed and I was laying in bed myself, and I was having these weird sensations. It's crazy how our body forgets what it feels like to have contractions. So I was having these sensations, and I wasn't even near my due date, So I was like, is this it? Is this not it? That could be like the worst part, is just determining if it's happening or not. So I was texting my mom. She told me to get up, walk around. So I did that, and they were still coming. And they were about 5 minutes apart, and it was like around midnight. So I went in. They didn't even think that I was actually gonna be staying, because I was only dilated to a 2, which I had been like the whole month. So I walked around the hospital a little bit, and then sure enough, my water broke, and everything progressed very quickly. Like, the main thing I remember from my second delivery is just shaking uncontrollably, because I was just progressing so quickly. Did have an epidural, though. He came out so quickly, like within 3 hours of getting into the hospital. So that takes me to my third pregnancy and labor and delivery. Historically speaking, like I just said, I had quick labor and deliveries and didn't ever push for too long. Like my second one, I literally pushed twice, and this was all, medicated. I had an epidural, which, makes it a little bit harder to push. I didn't have Pitocin with the second one, and I got him out just fine, because I wasn't 39 weeks. They didn't even admit me and start Pitocin. And then with my daughter, though, I did have Pitocin. So anyway, I have learned more in this third pregnancy, and I was like, okay, really want to try it naturally. I have very quick labor and deliveries, so I think that's my only motivation that could get me to try it naturally. I could do anything for a couple hours. That's what I was thinking. So then I was like, I'm going to educate myself, because I honestly don't want to pay for a doula. So I want to educate myself in the most possible way, the best way possible. I didn't want to pay for a doula, but also I'm like a people pleaser kind of personality, so I just feel like I wouldn't feel comfortable. Like, I feel like I would feel like I needed to be talking to the doula. I don't know. I just like the idea of having my husband there, my mom there, and no one else. I'm just that kind of person. So I was like, if I'm not doing that, I need to be completely educated. So then I went to YouTube, just like you might be doing, and dove into all of the videos of testimonies of women having birth naturally, and that's when I stumbled across the Bradley method. I was really interested in that because it talks about kind of controlling your pain. Hypnobirthing, I think, does the same, but the Bradley method, it was interesting to me because it's like your partner, your husband helps you out, and there's like certain positions that you're in. So I ordered book. This was the first book I got. It's called The Husband Coach Childbirth by Dr. Bradley. I thought this was like the one that explains how to actually do the Bradley method, but it's not. So I read it, and while reading it, I learned actually so much, and it really made me even more sure that I am doing the right thing by having this baby naturally. So reading that book and just being awake to so much, I had I could not turn back by this point. I was like, I cannot get the fentanyl stabbed into my back. I just cannot do it. So I took a different route. Instead of having an OB like I had previously, I found a birthing center that was like 50 minutes from my house, which scared me. But I was like, if I'm gonna do this, I have to do it somewhere where I can be comfortable in a bed and I could possibly be in water. So I chose a birthing center that helped my decision-making process as well. Then I also got the Common Ina May's Guide to Childbirth. Also so resourceful, learned so much, and of course continued my awakening of doing this whole thing natural, and just no turning back. I could not be oblivious anymore. I had to do this. Just real quick, I'll just read like a section of this from the Husband Coach Childbirth. So this actually is like a useful book for your husband. Even though I loved reading as well, I learned so much. But I think it's like the beginning part, it's basically teaching your husband about all the risks and the benefits to giving birth naturally, so that they can like be more educated and informed, and can help you, stay on track and want to do it as well. I'm going to read just a random section in here that, the whole thing was like, wow, mind-blowing. And it's all based on data and research and etc. But there's one part that talks about how drugged babies, meaning mothers who had the epidural, they are different, and how nurses, when epidurals started to become a thing, they would notice in the nursery the babies whose mother had them naturally, they were pinkish and more alert, and the babies who had their mothers had the epidural, they were kind of bluish and really not alert. So I'm just going to read a little section. Drugged babies are different. In contrast, the drugged mothers' babies were dusky blue. Oh, this is specifically with the nurses. Unresponsive, not interested in breastfeeding, listless, and needed to be aspirated or sucked out if mucus accumulated, because their muscles were too weak from the mother's drugs to allow them to cough or clear their own throats. Many hospitals have respiratory therapy team at the delivery, where they try to get tubes down the baby's throat before it takes its first breath to help it breathe because of the effects of the epidural. One of our new teachers who works as a nursing supervisor told me that she too could see which babies in the nursery had been born by natural childbirth and which had not when she came on duty. Very interesting to me, mostly because like the more I learned, I could relate it back to my 2 previous pregnancies. Like my daughter, she never had a good latch. From the beginning, it was terrible. It was so painful. And now I'm like, oh, well, I had an epidural for like 8 hours of my labor and delivery with her, so maybe that affected her. My son, on the other half, I had an epidural for like 45 minutes before he came out, so I doubt it affected him too much, and he latched right on, had no problems at all. I don't know if there's really something to it. Interesting either way. Okay, and my final reason to push for this natural childbirth this time was that I know God made us fearfully and wonderfully, and he designed women to do childbirth. This whole process has actually made me realize that we have literally changed a word in the dictionary. When people say they're having a baby, it's just assumed that they are getting an epidural and being medicated. And now that, and when you do it naturally, you have to literally say, I'm doing it naturally or unmedicated, when really we're just having a baby. So me and my family went to the Noah's Ark in Kentucky, Williamstown, Kentucky, specifically this past winter when I was pregnant. And at the very end, if you've ever been there, it's basically like a museum built in the whole ark. But at the very end, there is this huge timeline, and we actually bought it. I will try to put a little picture in here of it. So it shows basically all of creation from Adam and Eve to present day. And while looking at it, it just made me realize that, so epidurals didn't even become a thing until like 1970s. And if you look at the whole timeline of civilization, that little part is just so tiny. And it's like, okay, all of civilization has been created before epidurals. And why all of a sudden now us women, we can't have babies without an epidural? So that also encouraged me to just do this the way God intended us to do it. And I don't have a very high pain tolerance. And if I can do it, you can do it, I promise. And in my next video, I am going to actually tell the birth story, give all my tips. So if you would like to continue hearing about this and be encouraged to take do the different thing that everyone else is doing, and where I live, it's like just the norm that you're medicated while you're giving birth. But if you're feeling that urge, I encourage you to listen to my story in my next video. That's what I did whenever I was pregnant. I love listening to positive birth stories, so I hope you will listen in the next one.
Hi, my name is Kelsey. I live on a small farm with my husband and 2 young children. I love sharing motivational videos for cleaning, non-toxic living, baking with sourdough, gardening, homesteading, homeschooling. So if you're into these kind of things, please be sure to like and subscribe.